Good morning and welcome to Funky Rainbow this wonderful Saturday morning. Our Saturdays are always wonderful because they're packed with all things filled with books. And it gives us great pleasure to do this today, to be launching Rohini Nilekani's brand new book for children, The Great Rifasa. All of you know, and I thank you, friends, for joining us on Facebook and on Instagram and YouTube. All of you know Rohini Nilekani as a philanthropist, a writer, a children's book author, and she says she's a lover of long walks and all things wildlife. That's in the world of adults, of course. But for us in the children's book space, the thing that we all know Rohini for is her fabulous books for children. This wonderful series, that features a character called Sringeri Srinivasa Rao. And I can't tell you how many years and how many children have chuckled over Rohini Nilekani's very, very popular Sringeri Srinivas books. I mean, I can say this just from personal experience that I've had nieces and nephews reading, to whom I have read the Sringeri Srinivas books. And, I recall these, wonderful memories where they will read, then in a while after they got familiar with the character and the stories, they would read back to me giggling in anticipation of the wonderful things that are to come in in the book. Even if they knew what was happening, they were absolutely excited every single time. So it just gives me a lot of pleasure, on behalf of all of us at Team Funky Rainbow, to be launching Rohini Nilekani's brand new book for young readers, The Great Rifasa. I know Rohini is here with us already, and we'll say a quick hello to her before we get started with everything on today's event. Good morning. Good morning.
Namaste. Namaste, everyone. So happy to be here. Happy World Book Day. And I'm so much looking forward to our conversation. Thank you, Vidya. Thank you, Funky Rainbow.
Absolutely a pleasure to have you here, Rohini. Like I said at the start of the show, Funky Rainbow specializes in a curated collection of Indian children's books. And I know when we've taken them out to several places and several spaces, people have always asked us, are there any memorable characters in the Indian children's kidlit space? And I'm so happy to say that we've always had, along with Gajapati, let's say Gajapati Kulapati, Sringeri Srinivas, to show to them, saying, guys, you don't know what you're missing, really, if you haven't read these books. For our audience up here, very, very good morning. I can see Priya Singh, I can see Vijay Lakshmi Nagaraj, I can see a whole host of, friends joining us on Instagram as well. I want to say that Rohini's books, we have, I'm going to show out a couple of books that she has done for children before we get started with the one that she's written absolutely newly. So we don't have all of them in stock. Not all the books are in print at the moment. But the wonderful thing about the Pratham books is that you can read them on Pratham Books Story Weaver. So there's Not Now, Not Now. There's Topsy Turvy. There's annual haircut day once again. And I can't tell you, how very wonderful it is to have a new avatar of the annual haircut day book for COVID times. Sham, I'd like you to show out the covers of all her books. The first annual haircut day there. There's Too Many Bananas with Sringeri again. Sringeri Srinivas Learns to Laugh. Too Much Noise. Sringeri Srinivas's Cow Must Moo. Annual haircut day once again. Those are the Sringeri Srinivas books. There's Hungry Little Sky Monster. You can see that on our display at the back. Rohini's book that she did for Juggernaut Books. And of course, there is The Great Rifasa, her brand new book for children. And we're going to chat with her this morning to find out what this exciting book is all about. Before we get started, just a quick a launch video, because this is really the first event that Rohini Nilekani is doing around the Great Rifasa. Am I right, Rohini? Is this the first one that you're doing around the Great Rifasa? All
Absolutely
right.
correct, Vidya, and no better place to start.
Sending hugs and emojis your way. We're a little team, and we can't tell you how delighted we are to be doing this. But here's a little video to launch the Great Rifasa.
Wow, that was wonderful. Thank you.
Nothing short of the of Oscar-worthy, launch ceremonies for writers of Indian children's books. They deserve to be there, right up on top. So I'm going to, get into a chat with you, Rohini. But before, we get on that conversation, I'm going to invite a lovely young man who's been interning with us, whenever he's had the time from his very, very busy schedule. I want to invite this morning Avyukt Nair to join us right here. You want to say hello?
Good morning, ma'am.
Hello,
I'm
Avyukt. How
super
are you?
excited to do this.
I'm so happy. I'm a little nervous because you're going to ask me questions. So I'll try to be calm. Breathe.
So when my colleague was talking to him this morning, he says he's absolutely not nervous at all. I have to say that Avyukt has been reading with Funky Rainbow for over 5-6 years now, perhaps, really. And every single time any of us have doubted what we're doing and why we're doing what we're doing, we only need to turn to a young man like Avyukt Nair to know that that what we're doing makes absolute sense. He's an avid reader and he's a deep questioner. So I'm very, very, I'm glad that you're feeling a bit nervous, Rohini. There are several questions that he's asked me that make me quite stumped. And, we don't have an answer for Avyukt very easily. So we're going to, do this format where we ask a few questions. I mean, I ask a few, Avyukt asks a few, and then we'll have you do a reading from the book. I'm just going to say hello to a bunch of viewers who have watched us, who are watching us. Tara Veeraraghavan, good morning. So lovely to see you. Arunji, we can't tell you how happy we are to see librarians join us all the way from Hyderabad. I don't know whether you've gone back from Bangalore, but if you're at Hyderabad, so lovely that you've joined us this morning. Ritvika Roy, what a pleasure that you've joined us all the way from Kolkata. It's lovely when teachers and librarians and PhD students and book lovers are there at the show cheering all of us on. I'm going to get started with my questions, for Rohini this morning. The first one of which is, books have always been at the heart of many things, of virtually everything that you have done, Rohini, as an adult. So whether, in your role as a journalist, as an educationist, as an environmentalist, as a philanthropist, parent and grandparent, right? Tell us, was this the case even when you were a child?
Oh, yes, just like our young Avyukt. I started reading pretty early, even at the age of 4, because my older sister, was much older than me, was an avid reader. And even before my parents or the school could teach me anything in terms of alphabets, I somehow, watching over her shoulder, started to learn to read on my own. And I never looked back since then. Always had books next to my bed, under my bed cover, sometimes under the bed, because my mother would say, when are you going to come and do your duties at home? It was simple duties like laying the table, but had to be torn away. So always with books. And we had a great circulating library just nearby. Even as young children in those days, we were allowed to go alone. to the library and bring back books. So without books, I could not possibly have had the great childhood that I did.
How very, very lovely to hear that. I mean, it's always some of the many adults that you meet with and you feel that they are doing just what they want to do in life. And, they have made that start. I think it's books that have given them that start. And we can't ever, stress more to our audiences who are watching that absolutely let your children read for the pleasure of it. And I just love that point that you made about going alone to the lending library and not having somebody look over your shoulders asking you to pick the books that that they think are the right books for you to read. Isn't that true?
Absolutely.
So the natural world and its conservation are really, really close to your heart. We know that in the course of your work as a philanthropist, you have supported projects on water conservation, on wildlife, conservation, and you did in your descriptors say that you absolutely enjoy the outdoors. There's nothing quite like a lovely walk for you. Where and how did this love for nature begin, Rohini?
I think I was really lucky to have my grandparents' farm not very far from Mumbai, where I used to live as a child. So we used to go there as often as we could. And those open spaces, all the trees, all the shade under the trees where you could sit and read, all the strange creatures out there. I remember, I don't know if Abhiyukti will like this, but in those days, there were so many insects in Dahanu, where I used to go, which has now become a part of Bombay almost. But then when we put our mosquito nets, the whole thing used to be covered with moths. It used to be a bit eerie because I didn't understand enough then. But today we do that deliberately. We go put bed sheets outside in my homes so that all the moths can come to the light. So from those very early days, there's something that fascinated me about the trees, the birds, the insects, the fruits, the plants, everything. And then when I became a journalist and started writing a lot of things, realized how critical conservation and the regeneration of the environment is to every single one of us. So in my philanthropy, we reached out to dozens and dozens of lovely organizations in India doing tremendous work so that our youth generation can have a healthy ecosystem around them.
So well said, really. And I mean, one, leaving a healthy ecosystem, but also, leaving them with the hope that the earth will and with our efforts can regenerate itself, we can undo all the wrongs that we have done thus far. I really find a lot of your conversations which I've heard online several times very hopeful, Rohini, that this generation will perhaps set many things right if we give
they're
them
very exposed to the environmental issues from a very young age and through all the internet and everything that they access. So I'm expecting this generation to be extremely environment conscious because they want to heal the earth for themselves. That's very good.
Absolutely. So, Abhyut, you go. You had a bunch of questions, right?
Tell us about the Great Rifasa, your book. The title of the book, The Great Rifasa. What does the word Rifasa mean? Is it a rearrangement of the word safari, or does it have another specific meaning?
No, it was just a playful word because normally safaris are done by humans. And in this book, we've turned that around. So I turned the word safari also around for some fun. So it doesn't work so well in Indian languages because it is safari, rifasa, not sa. But in English, it comes out as sa. So safari or rifasa is how I played on the word safari. I hope you liked it. We'll always look out from now on. If animals are looking for us, looking around, we'll say maybe they're on a rifasa.
That was very funny.
So one part of his question was what prompted you to write The Great Rifasa, Rohini?
Right. So, I've become very, very fond of this little forest near, not far from where I live in Bangalore called Kabini, which is part of the Nagarahole forest. But Kabini is very special to all of us in Bangalore because it's very close by and has so much diversity of flora and fauna. And we can easily go and see tigers there and other things. But then, as some of you may know, I fell in love with one animal, the black panther of Kabini, who is locally called Kariya, and I was chasing him for days. So I went to Kamini so many times that I began to love the forest and understand that if we understand nature better, we can begin to love it, we can begin to cherish it, and we can begin to respect it. So I wanted to do a fun story for children set in my very favorite forest, Kabini. And in fact, my illustrator, Sangeeta Kalur, who's a fantastic wildlife documenter with her brother, they are so very good at detailing wildlife. When she agreed to do this, it was the icing on the cake. And I really hope children everywhere will love this little funny book done during the pandemic.
How very lovely. I want to show up those two wonderful photographs that you shared with us, taken by Sandesh Kadur and by Philip Ross of the Black Panther. I mean, it's not easy to see. This one is by Philip Ross and this one by Sandesh Kadur. The Kalia, the Black Panther that Rohini just referred to while we were talking. Yes, Avyut.
This story talks about your story, The Great Rifasa, talks about the animals that are rare to spot on a safari. Have you had the chance to experience this safari, these animals in Kabini or elsewhere?
Yes, whenever I get a chance, Avyuk, I push off and go into some forest and try to go on safaris or walks there. And I try to see as many things I can, not just the big animals, but also the tiniest moths and spiders. And I've learned a lot about them. And yes, I go, and everyone should have the fortune to go on a safari during their holidays to be able to really immerse yourself in nature. I go to Kabini so much that those poor people think I live there and I visit Bangalore sometimes. But that's not true.
Recently, I had also gone on a safari, but when I got there, it was in Banarghata National Park. When I got there, it was afternoon. The animals looked very bored, and most of them were fast asleep.
Yeah, I must say the big cats, the lions and tigers, in the afternoons, all the animals just sort of sometimes they put their hands and legs up like this, find a cool space and doze off. So afternoons are not so good to see, especially the big cats. But Banirghata, the safari there, those animals are captive animals that have been rescued from different places. So they're nicely well fed and happy. Whereas if you go into real jungle where the animals are very wild, they are much more active because they have to hunt almost every day, and they have to, even when they're sleeping, they have to keep one eye open in case some food pops along. So you're more likely to find them in the real wild on safari.
That's a good answer. So, what's the moral of the story? The early bird gets the worm, right? So, you get on and go to Banarghata early to see the animals.
But what inspired you to think of how the animals felt during the safari from their point of view or during the COVID lockdown?
Yeah. So we all knew that although so many people were suffering, and we must never forget those who suffered, the people, a lot of other people were very lucky in that time to get clean air and to see the animals had returned. For the animals, it felt like, oh my God, the human beings have gone away for some time, and they began to discover their old places again. There is lots of data from the country that wild animals began to come back to their remembered grasslands where otherwise there are human beings, but for that 1 year they weren't. So they kept coming back. And then I said, what if I was that animal? How would I see the human spaces? And just like we keep on personifying animals, I thought if we gave animals to personify us, it would kind of be an equal thing to do for their sake. But of course, it has not to be taken literally. I've done it as an imaginative exercise. We must always be a little careful. My forest department friends will scold me because they will say, don't personalize the animals. They are wild animals. They are not humans. It's okay to write stories, but when we are in the wild, we must remember to respect them for being wild. We're not trying to tame wild animals. But I thought it's a nice take looking at it from the animal's point of view, because I feel they must be really irritated, right, by humans sometimes. But maybe, because all of us, so many of us care so much about wildlife, maybe the animals may recognize that too. So I wanted to encourage more people to feel from the animal's perspective how it is when human beings trouble them, and how it is when human beings don't trouble them and help them to conserve their spaces.
How what a thoughtful answer, isn't it? Like, right? In fact, that leads me to a question that I wanted to ask you. Why did you choose fantasy as an element, I mean, as the genre to tell this very real story of conservation, actually, Rohini?
Yeah, I do want to try different forms, Vidya, of writing. And it was kind of, since this is obviously not factual, I don't think the poor elephants are really waiting for us to come back. But I just wanted humans to feel good. So I had to use fantasy because this could not have been written as fact. In fact, I'm hoping I will use these illustrations because they're so incredible, the work that
In fact, we can
Sangeeta
show
has
them
done. So I
at the
might do
moment.
another non-fiction piece with Sangeeta based on these, so that y'all can even more understand what it takes to conserve a forest like Kabini, and what all is being done and what more needs to be done so that we can conserve the wild.
We're just showing out some of the illustrations from the book. You can see they're so they really are very, very charming and give you a great sense of the place.
Yes,
um,
it is very much based on Kabini. You could almost use this as a map, and every animal she has drawn as true as possible to the actual animal that we have seen. So she has actually taken photos which Sandesh and we all have sent her, and drawn even the markings of the animals that some of us can even recognize.
Oh, how very wonderful that is, really. And that's just, folks, a sneak peek into the book. It's a big, lots more pages, lots more beautiful illustrations, and a fantastic, fun story, really, about the far-reaching impact of COVID-19. Not just on all of us, but also the animal world. We have Rohini has kindly autographed all the copies that we have at Funky Rainbow, including, her other books that we have at the moment. Not Now, Not Now, Topsy Turvy, Annual Haircut Day, once again. So you all of you know the website. Just go to www.funkyrainbow.com, click on the tab, search for this book and order right away. We assure you that some lovely books will come into your home, if you don't already have Rohini's books, with Pratham and Juggernaut. Um, one of the things that we've done across these Saturdays is to introduce books on various themes and environment. It has been a very, very popular one, Rohini. And in the course of conversations with different conservationists, and we've been doing this for 2 years now because the pandemic literally shut us down as well. We're a traveling children's bookshop. Where could we possibly travel in the pandemic, right? So we felt one way of bringing the bookshop to everybody was to go live every Saturday and let them, and we have a host of questions, so let people ask questions and recommend books for them. In the course of all those conversations with wildlife enthusiasts and conservationists, one thing that I really felt was that every single one of them said that their expeditions into the natural world were not really just about spotting an animal or spotting a bird or ticking something off their checklist. They say creatures great and small around us have life lessons for human beings. Would you agree? And is there anything that you'd like to share from there with us?
No, I couldn't agree more. I think when we go into forests and wild spaces, we have to go with a feeling of sacredness. It's not just to go as consumers. Sometimes it's okay. I get excited with every tiger I see, but not to go as consumers. We're not trying to buy the experience of the forest. The forest is so deeply connected to our well being and to us that we go there with respect. We go there sometimes as trustees of the forest, because human beings have been able to do more damage than any other species. So as we go in, if we go with respect, if we go with humility, then you can experience the absolute wonder at every turn. Whether it is just a beautiful tree that is so old and has so many stories to tell, or it is a spider, a giant wood spider spinning a huge web above your head. All you have to be able to keep all your senses alive when you go into the forest. But most of all, in your heart, you have to have humility, and in your mind, you have to have curiosity. That's the only hope for the human species right now, to keep both alive.
Absolutely, so well said. I mean, I can see a whole bunch of comments that have been coming up, and I haven't been really looking in that direction. But Vijay Lakshmi Nagaraj, author, storyteller, absolutely conveys her compliments to you and to the illustrators, saying that those illustrations were very stunning. Ritvika Roy says there's a colloquial saying in Bengal which says it's not, is it not a human because it is an animal? It's usually asked sarcastically, but it's a profound sentiment to remember about giving animals respect just as one would give a human being. I mean, that exactly echoes the sentiment that you shared just now, Rohini.
What does Avyuk think? Avyuk, do you agree with all this adult speak, or do you have something else you think?
Actually, I do understand about how we have to care for nature, how much that we have to respect nature. Otherwise, not exactly.
You don't agree with us? Don't
Yes,
exactly.
I do agree. I do agree with all of what you said. But yes.
If you have a difference of opinion, we're absolutely the platform just to air it, Avyuk. Like,
I do have the same opinion.
Mm-hmm. That's
Actually, I do have the same opinion.
I don't know whether he's going to go back and tell his mum something.
You can listen if you have a doubt. We are happy to listen.
Yes, absolutely. If you have some doubt, go right ahead and ask. No problem at all. But if you have another question for Rohini, please go ahead and ask.
Actually, I do have one question.
Yes.
Ma'am, what would be your advice for me and my friends who are watching to write about animal stories?
That's a great question, and I'm sure with Funky Rainbow's help, you can do a great job. Why don't you all together come up with a writing project? Everyone individually can always write on their own. Sometimes writing is a lonely occupation. But what if some friends who are thinking together have a brainstorming session about writing some funny, interesting, full of facts and knowledge story about animals as a common project? Because anybody can put stories up on storyweaver.in, you know that, right? And one of your, maybe Vidya will help make sure it's edited well, and all of you can put it up, and it will be on Storyweaver for the whole world to read. So when we set up Pratham Books, I set it up in 2004 with some colleagues. We always wanted to make sure that anyone who wants to write, anyone who wants to illustrate, and of course everyone who wants to read must be able to do so at their convenience and free. So do that, Avyuk, then send it to me as soon as it's done.
Okay.
I can see many Haripriya Batula who's sending all her compliments to Avyuk, and rightfully so, Haripriya. And Arun saying, FR, please grab the idea of this project. I mean, there's nothing quite as pleasurable as children writing stories that all of us can read. And I can see Tara Veeraraghavan, who knows you, saying that Avyuk is a great writer. We can vouch for that, Rohini, and we will certainly send out the stories that we come up with for you to read. The one thing that I wanted to ask, and this is something that I'm a reader, and everybody at Funky Rainbow is quite a reader. So often, nose in a book is how you will find all of us. But what would you say, nose in a book or head outside the window, what helps inculcate a love for nature in children? And what do you think adults, because almost everyone who's watching us here this morning, they're teachers, parents, and librarians, what do you think adults can do to inculcate a love for nature in children?
Of course, you should read books all the time, but I would say if you don't experience nature directly yourself, and you don't even need to leave your homes. In India, we have so much diversity inside our homes. No matter how much you try to get rid of the ants, they find their way back. So first start with wherever you are. There are a million miracles right around you right now. which just takes one microscope and a little patience, and you'll find all kinds of living things in your room. Starting from there and moving outside the door of your home, wherever you go in India, we have natural diversity. And the first two times you may say, why should I worry about, why should I look at spiders? They're all the same. But you look at your 5 different spiders and you'll find out just how fascinating they are in the way they spin their webs, and each spider does different things to camouflage. It's really a marvelous world. So imagine if that is only the world of spiders, how much more is there to discover outside. Just get out into the wild, get out into nature as much as you can. And the Japanese call it Shinrin Yoku, because they really believe that it's also beneficial to our mental, emotional health as well. And all parents who haven't taken their children somewhere, summer holidays, just go.
So true, so well said. Actually, Avyut, you must tell Rohini that what you do on your little expeditions just outside your house.
Actually, with my friend Shreyas, I've been going around my complex, noting down the flora and fauna of my.
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. I think if everyone around you did it, maybe in your class or your building or your home where you stay, then for that area, you can do a full sort of mapping of the biodiversity. Many adults will help you. You connect to me, I'll put people in touch who will help you all. And whatever area, where do you stay?
Where do you stay? She's asking you.
I stay in Kalina Agrahala Mantri Residency.
Bangalore.
And you could actually map out everything, find the pictures of that, and have a tiny little encyclopedia for your own community. That would be so great.
Ah, what a lovely project idea. A little book that can be created for every, apartment complex or, community where people live, with a list of the flora, fauna, and insects. That's just a wonderful idea that she's given us. And maybe that's the project that we should collaborate on. Are you game?
Yes.
And we'll send it out.
You're going to become a citizen scientist, of you. And there are many, many websites in India, including Early Bird, where everybody can list out their sightings for the day. You have to take 10 minutes, stand in your balcony or in your garden or in the common area downstairs. And for 10 minutes, you have to see how many birds you saw. And it doesn't matter if you just saw 3 pigeons and 1 crow. That's also fine. And then you go and submit your bird list to this website, so that all of us together in India can map all our marvelous biodiversity. Let me know if you need any help on that, okay?
Okay.
That's a wonderful, wonderful offer, Rohini, and I'm sure Avyukt will take you up on that. Siddharth says the amount of exposure Rohini ma'am is giving through her book, it would help the younger generation to be closer to the flora and fauna, even within their own locality. Very, very well said. Rohini, before I ask you to do a quick reading from the book, I want to say hello to so many people who've joined in. So just give us a minute to acknowledge everyone who's taken time out to join us on a Saturday morning. We'll, just say a big round of hellos to all of them. Girl with a Green Mind, how very wonderful. Sahaha Jose, Amma, Soul, Cozy Nook Library, we're utterly delighted to have you wonderful librarians join us today. Manu Easy, Shwe Sharan, Anjali S. Pradhan, Narayan Swami, Deepika Prakash, Loki Rani, what a pleasure. Really, really lovely. Lakshmi Karunakaran, Chulbuli Ladki, Bhuvaneshwari, Onaj, Aarti Mamta. So lovely when writers of other books on conservation are here as well. Ride Home, we love your book on the environment, Unearthed. So lovely that you are here this morning as well. Shweta Kolochana, House of Books and Tales. Mittal Chitwan, publisher of a brand new series of books. So lovely that you've joined us this morning. Vijay Lakshmi Nagaraj, author, storyteller, huge Funky Rainbow supporter, making us reach our books to areas that we just wouldn't even dream of. Somewhere far in the northeast, to little islands, in the Majoli area. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for supporting us in everything that we do. Tara Veera Raghavan, Arunji, Ritvika Roy, Divya Purandar, how very lovely lovely. We do know that your son and daughter do have their nose in books and in outside the window. I'm sure you enjoyed this conversation with Rohini very much. Viju Menon, Siddharth Nair, what a pleasure that you were all here, with us this morning. I'm going to now request Rohini to do, and Sunila Kulkarni Gupte, I can just, see her say, hello, Funky Rainbow. How lovely you have joined us this morning, Sunila. Big champion of Funky Rainbow's shows and cheering us on from the sidelines, which always keeps us going despite the odds. I'm going to request Rohini to do a quick reading from her book, The Great Rifasa.
So I'll just do a bit of it, right? I'll begin in the middle just to give a sense of how the book flows.
Absolutely.
So, of course, it's the pandemic and none of the humans have gone into the forest, which is why the animals are very uneasy. They think something is wrong. And for a while, I'm reading now from the book, for a while, some of the animals enjoyed the peace. Good riddance, they thought. Now they could freely wander about and lie on the roads. The predators could hunt right in the open. Everyone could breathe cleaner air. But soon, animal after animal started to tell a different story. My cubs love to run away and play. Sometimes the humans find them even before I can, confessed Nama the tigress. Let's hope they come back soon. The elephant mother trumpeted in agreement. They can be irritating, she said, but they build paths for us to cross the jungle and avoid the prickly lantana plants. Yes, and I do pretend to charge at them sometimes, Tambu the young tusker laughed. It is so boring without them. The Kabini animals decided to act. After many years, the jungle council was called. Do you want me to continue or stop, Vidya?
You can. We have a bit of time. We have another 10 minutes, Rohini. So
okay. Mighty old Bhogeshwara. And Avyukt, if you go to Kabini, look out for this mighty old Bhogeshwara. He's one of the oldest elephants in Kabini. His tusks reach almost to the ground. Literally across, right down. Each tusk must be worth 200 kgs on its own. That's how big they are. And he's called Mr. Kabini as well because he's the most dramatic elephant in Kabini. Mighty old Bhogeshwara, the long-tusked elephant, took charge. He commanded the langurs to gather all the animals. Soon the jungle was abuzz with their myriad coughs and screams. Come for an important meeting, they called out. You will all be safe. No predator will attack. Come to the backwaters now. One by one, all the animals came out to the open grassland near the water. Elephants and big cats, deer and monkeys, squirrel and jungle fowl, bears and boars, otters and crocodiles. What a spectacular sight it was.
wow.
So I'll stop there because you really need to see the book on your own. But just look at this. Is literally, I would love to have a time when I go to Kabini and see all the animals in one space like that, which may not happen, but it's happened in this book. So let's enjoy the illustrations.
Yes, I'm going to just, for the benefit of those who joined in a little later, show out the illustrations in the book once more because they are truly spectacular. And we were actually discussing that at Funky Rainbow, the Indian elephant with such large tusks, right? I mean, typically the Indian ones are smaller than the Asian ones. My partner at Funky Rainbow, Muttama, who's had the pleasure of being in Africa, said, "Do Indian elephants have such large tusks?" And I'm so glad that you clarified that story about Bhogeshwara, because imagine those tusks reaching the ground. What a magnificent sight! Sham, can we just show up the illustrations once more for people who came in late? Yes, there's Bhogeshwara.
And he's drawn him exactly right.
My. Yes. And I love that cool Mr. Kabini, name for him. He indeed is Mr. Kabini. Have you been to Kabini, have you?
No.
So you know where you're going to go perhaps this summer holidays or the next vacation, yeah? I'm just going to, call out a couple of comments that we have from our viewers. And, then wrap up the show if we don't have that many more questions at the moment. Could you just show them up to me from there? Yeah, thank you. Just a second. Okay, so we have one that comes up. Many children are usually taken to zoos as a vacation trip. What would you advise them about the importance of visiting, zoos vis-a-vis forests, or going on a safari, Rohini?
Yeah. No, that's a very good question. You see, zoos are important. They have a place because that's where, especially young children, get their first sense of what animals really look like. Because obviously, we don't have them roaming around our streets. And so, zoos are very important. But I must say that the way our zoos are kept is really not the best way to manage zoos. So, I feel very conflicted about romanticizing the zoos. If all of us who go to zoos see something that was wrong, see animals that were in too small cages or looking less than well fed, I hope all of us will raise our voices so that the zoos, they stay, and you have even more zoos because rescued animals need a place to live. But we need far, far better conditions, and we need our zoos to have lots more information for young people out there to get more and more interested in the natural world. So go to zoos, of course, because that's much easier. But do try. Everybody must try to take young children. It is critical to take them out into the wild whenever it is possible. If it's very expensive to stay at hotels and go on safaris, please, anywhere, there are so many outdoor places in India that you can just go and soak in the forest. But for that, adults will have to bring their curiosity and humility with them too, and a sense of adventure. And everything in India is open for us. We are blessed, one of the only countries in the world with such a dense population, with such density in geographical terms, who has managed to retain maximum biodiversity in our country because we understand the connection between the wild and us, and we have held all these things very sacred. That must not change because eventually our medicines come from the wild, our food supply comes from the wild, our water systems come from the forests and nature. So not just for our sake, but also for the sake of life outside human life itself, we need to go and connect with the wild. So I do hope everyone will take young children out into a real forest because we have those opportunities in India. We have 52 tiger sanctuaries, most of which can be visited at relatively reasonable cost. So I'm sorry I gave this long lecture for such a simple question, but
No.
zoos are okay, but my God, forests are better.
It's very, very well said, Rohini. It reminds me of a wonderful story that author, naturalist, writer Zai Whitaker wrote for our magazine very many years ago. It was called A Trip to the Zoo. And it was this little boy's birthday. And what he wanted most of all for his parents to do was to take him to the zoo. And what had inspired that was the fact that he had been seeing Nat Geo and Discovery over and over again on TV, and he had this beautiful these stunning images of the tiger in his head. He was dreaming of the stripes. He was just dreaming of everything that magnificent beast represents. And it was such a the story was quite sad even for us adults to read. When he goes to the zoo, he just sees this mangy tiger, which is like swatting flies off with its tail. And it broke my heart to put that story, but the thing is, it got so many responses from readers who said, Auntie, this is so right. Our zoos are not what our wild places are. And no offense to any zoo managing authority or anything. I'm sure it's a really, really difficult job, but we need to do, I think.
I think we should speak out. Too many of us are too apathetic about things. We have to speak out and say we want our zoos to be much better kept. We want people to be willing to pay a little more if they can when they go into zoos. We want a lot of good research to happen, but we need to see the animals getting the space and treatment they deserve if they're going to be in zoos. And even when people go into zoos, they have to go with a mindset to learn.
Absolutely. I can see Sunila Kulkarni Gupte agreeing absolutely about what you're saying on zoos. I have... Okay, two more questions again that have come to us. One is, what are other places, like, I mean, are there any other places like Kabini? Because we have people who view us from all across the country. If there are one or two that you would like to mention, where people can take their kids to experience the wild wonderfully.
I mean, there are really so many. As I said, there are 52 tiger sanctuaries. Many of them have very regulated safaris that you can go into with all ranges of hotels not very far from there. Right in Karnataka, we have the Bandipur in addition to Kabini. We have Dandeli. We have so many places here. The Northeast is full of marvelous places to visit, but it takes a lot of time to get there. But if you can go to Arunachal Pradesh, or even if you go to some of the parks in Madhya Pradesh, we have Kanha, we have Panna, we have Bandhavgarh. In Gujarat, we have in Rajasthan and Gujarat, we have so many marvelous places to go to. There is no state in India where you cannot access a wild nature park. So just take out Google and off you go.
And that reminds me of one other lovely book that Sangeeta Kadur has illustrated for Pratham, wildlife in a city pond. I mean, all you need to do is to get to the local water bodies, or, just to the little spaces in your own city, where you can.
Absolutely. If you're in Delhi, if you're in Pune, if you're in Bangalore, if you're in Chennai, there are so many large institutions that sometimes open up there, many acres. Everywhere you go in India, you can encounter the wild. So, but it's great to plan it and go properly, so that read up a little bit before going into a nature park, but that will double your enjoyment.
Absolutely. Siddharth saying, our culture is connected to wildlife, and we have so much diversity in the wildlife in India. And Vijay Lakshmi Nagraj pointing to the fact that Assam has some wonderful and lovely sanctuaries as well. One, last question, and my partner Muttama reminding me that because of Vijay Lakshmi Nagraj, we had this wonderful opportunity to take books to Kaziranga, and not just share those books with people, but also for us to see the rhino right there, on an elephant back trip. I mean, my gosh, it just opened our eyes to the beauty of the natural world so wonderfully. One last question, Rohini, and again from one of our viewers: what can one do to avoid human-animal conflict? We hear a lot of instances of this in the world around us these days.
Yeah. No, that's a really important question, and we have to address it very seriously. There is going to be more and more conflict as the animals, actually, because we have been so successful in preserving our diversity, and as our population is growing, at least for the next 20 years, there will be increasing conflict. I think if there are man-eating tigers, if there are bears that are killing, obviously they have to be removed from that space. We cannot endanger human beings like that. But and I support several organizations in India that are working actively with local communities to create more peaceful coexistence and reduce animal-human conflict, especially with big cats and elephants. But I also feel that somewhere all of us, and here I'm sure these are all converted people, but outside there, to remind everyone that we are all part of this planet that is our home, and everyone deserves to be there. And if we are a little careful, if we equip ourselves with a little more knowledge about animal behavior, and if we are relatively careful, I think conflicts can reduce even further. There's a lot of attempt already to reduce them. We all can join in it by ourselves not behaving recklessly, because wild animals are wild. They are not going to come and you cannot pet them. You cannot take them for granted. And you have to, like, for example, we go to our Kunnur home. Earlier, we could just walk wherever we wanted to without turning our heads and looking around. But the bison, that the Indian gore there has increased so much that we are sensible now. To some of the wilder places, we don't go alone. We make sure we make a little extra noise with our walking sticks, so that animals are not trying to, for no good reason, try to come and attack us, right? We are not their natural prey at all, even for tigers and leopards. If we are a little careful, look around, listen, use our senses, we can avoid a lot of human-animal conflict. And also, whenever you can support organizations that are working day and night for that, please do so as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Such important and, wise words for all of us who are listening, to know that, to be aware that we share this planet with creatures great and small, and we have to be mindful of their spaces as much as we are of our own. Very, very well said, Rohini. I'm going to ask Avyuk to say something, and then I'll introduce you to our team. I can see some more comments that have come up where Arun says, I enjoyed reading Tippu, the Sultan of the Sivaliks, which is a book that came out recently by Christy Amalraj, and he says, I absolutely enjoyed reading that one. Arun, I can assure you, you and your children, the students at your school, will certainly enjoy the great Rifasa as well. I know you're a huge Funky Rainbow supporter, so I know that this book will be on your shelf very soon. Would you like to say something to Rohini ma'am before we wrap up the show, Avyuk?
Mostly regularly monkeys, because in our house we have a huge garden. So regularly monkeys will come, and I do not know why, but they always will raid the raw tomatoes. They always raid the raw tomatoes, even ripe tomatoes. And once we have a baby banana plant. They nearly destroyed the banana plant, but they didn't touch it later because they found out it had no bananas. But the only plant they did not touch was the Karela plant, or the bitter.
Long leaf Karela. I hope you eat it though. It's supposed to be very good for you. If you fry it nicely, it tastes very good. Yes, monkeys can be quite bothersome. No question about that. And sometimes they have to be controlled as well. But sometimes you can say, okay, monkeys, you can have those tomatoes and I'll make my tomato plant somewhere safer. You have to do a little give and take. If you give, you can receive. So I think it's a mutual thing. And I'm glad you are so comfortable with your monkeys eating up all your raw tomatoes.
I am comfortable with that, but my mother's not.
I mean, when a gardener is trying to grow tomatoes with so much love, and then these fellows just come and take it all, you're going to say,
Actually, my mother took care of the tomatoes. Me and my sister planted them.
Ooh, I see. So then you can tell your mother you actually planted them for the monkeys to have.
She's absolutely shaking her head in dismay at the moment. I would love for the monkeys to take away my Karelas. Definitely not my favorite vegetable, I've got to say. Rohini, before we say, of course, there's been so many comments on the Sringeri Srinivas books. And so I'm just going to quickly, Divya says, one of the first books that my son read over 10 years ago was Sringeri Srinivas. And now my little one will be thrilled to make a start with the great Rifasa, she says. Okay. And Haripriya Batula says, why does Sringeri Srinivas wear a purple kurta all the time? It was a big question at my library last week. You have to respond to such fashion statements, definitely.
Batula, for your sake, the next book that I have to write, because remember in the last book I wrote, Sringeri had made a promise not to cut his hair till the pandemic is over. So now his hair has grown so much, it was reaching the other room, so I have to rescue him soon. And I promise I will make sure he doesn't wear a purple kurta again.
Look, the sartorial style of characters are completely determined only by the authors.
Is there any color you like, young little one? I think she's the young child who asked the question.
No, Haripriya Batula is a librarian and runs a lovely library in Hyderabad.
Okay. So Haripriya, what is your color? Which color should I put on Sringeri's
Go
next
ahead,
book?
Haripriya. Give us the answer just right now. Your kids' favorite, color choice will be in the next Sringeri book. We'll wait for her to respond, before we put out what color. Rohini, you'll be held to that promise. Let me tell you that.
Yes, I have to tell Angie and Rupesh, my illustrators, do anything you want, but the kurta has to be based on Haripriya's color.
Okay, done. If we don't hear from her in a bit on what that color is, we will mail you and let you know.
Absolutely.
I want to tell you He wore yellow in the first, she says. Okay. And Ameya, of course, Avyuk's sister Ameya is much younger and a huge fan of Sringeri. I have to tell you about an initiative that, across these shows that we've been running every week, we used to have a distant cousin of Sringeri Srinivas visit us every week. Now, I'm just going to and that's whom Ameya is asking, us about.
Wow.
He's asking whether, and shall I give you the name, Rohini? He's
I
asking,
saw it is Kengeri Srinivas.
he's Kengeri Hanumanta Rao, retired from the Panchayat, and who comes and at the end of the show, pops a quiz. He's an all-knowing busybody, as many of them are, really, right? Pops a couple of questions to our audience. He just thought he'd come and say a quick hello to you before we wrap up for the day. And I can see even before that, Haripriya Batula has her answer.
Blue,
She
blue.
says, blue to beat our blues. So,
Absolutely. It's a done deal. Done deal.
So while we wait to say hello, let Kengeri Hanumanta Rao come and say hello to you, Rohini. We want to thank you for doing this wonderful session, and really looking forward to a lot more books, from your stable. Especially because, like I said at the start of the show, it is, books filled with hope. I mean, and these are times in which we need them more than ever. We really look forward to those happy, hopeful stories from you.
I'm telling you, I'm giving a sneak preview again. The first time I'm speaking about it, my next book, The Boy Who Was Afraid of Balloons, will be out on Story Weaver next month.
Yay! Meanwhile,
Oh, namaskara.
Namaskara. I am the Kengeri.
How nice to meet you.
I am the Kengeri from the Kengeri. My name is the Hanumanta. I am very long relative of the Sringeri. He is very close to me.
Very good.
I am from the Panchayat. I am retired now. Before I was 9 to 5 jobless. Now I am completely jobless.
Oh, very good. I would love to meet
Yes,
you.
I am also reading about the animals in the books you are say so. But I am also reminded of my relatives like that.
To meet you. Very good to meet you.
Okay,
Namaste.
namaskar. Very
Namaste.
pleasure to meet you, Madam Rohini. I shall see you very soon.
Please say my hello to Sringeri. Please say hello to Sringeri from me.
Yes, of course. It's very important persons in the funky rainbows. Namaskar, madam. Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Very pleasure to meet you.
so you can see that was our busybody, all-knowing busybody, Kengeri Hanumanta Rao. I'm just going to quickly introduce you to my team, Rohini. Everybody would like to say hello to you. Please come, Netra, Bharti. I want to introduce you first to my partners and, absolutely the people who keep Funky Rainbow going. Sham, who is behind all the technology for us to pull off this show. Muttama, who handles, all our school programs, all our publicity, with a smiling face, which I'm not sure, I have so easily. But the two lovely girls who are the lifeline of everything we do, Bharti and Netra, who would like to say hello and thank you to you.
I salute your whole team. More than ever, it is important to have bookshops, libraries, and physical spaces where children can come and be guided and really start a reading journey for their lives. So you all are doing such important work for society. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure. I can't go without saying a big thank you to our young intern. He literally comes whenever he has the time, helps us arrange books on our shelves, helps us choose themes for our show. And I'm going to, of course, introduce you to his mother, who has eagerly and always been so supportive of everything that we've done at Funky Rainbow. This is Divya, who would like to say hello and
Hello, Divya. What a delightful young child you have raised.
Thank you so much. Like I always say, it takes a village to raise a child. So for us, it's Funky Rainbow.
Wonderful, wonderful, super.
Thank you so much.
Stay well. Stay well.
thank you so much. A lot of our viewers saying I was waiting for this and want to say thank you. Many of them saying thank you to you, Avyuk. Rohini, it was such a pleasure. We absolutely look forward to more such collaborations with you. Everyone watching, the books are up. We have lots and lots of copies of the Rifasa with us. They're all autographed. We also have them not just in English, we have them in Hindi, in Kannada, and in Tamil at the moment. Please do consider picking them up from Funky Rainbow. You know the website, www.funkyrainbow.com. We look forward to being with you again very soon. Thank you, Rohini.
Happy reading, everyone.
Thank you, and bye-bye.